here. It's really easy to shout and sing from in one of the seats or in the back row, but it's a little bit different.
Sorry. Actually, that's working for it.
Not too short. I got it.
How's that work?
Doesn't matter as long as it's sound.
That's right. Have to adjust it again.
You gotta use a street that goes to churches.
So I'm going to be talking about being sober-minded, which can involve almost anything you do. If you aren't sober-minded in the way that you're thinking, you're going to probably behave in your speech and actions in some improper way. So first, just quickly, I'm going to quote Titus 2:6. Well, I can look at it. We might look at it again a little later. This verse is written for young men. It says, "Young men likewise exhort to be sober-minded." And it doesn't really say much here about what sober-mindedness is. But I looked at all of the instances of the word sober, soberness, and sobriety. And what I found is that it doesn't seem to much have any definition along with not being drunk, at least that I can find in the scriptures. So I decided I might consult Webster, even though it's not a biblical source, but just taking one of the definitions that I read out of there, sober-mindedness is freedom from inordinate passions, habitual sobriety. So I guess inordinate passions, just like anything that could have a hold on you that is like something you want to do, something you go after, that's just a bad thing that's going to not bring glory to God, it's going to change the way you behave. And then I got up today that Carta Bible thing is always blasting a verse every time you wake up. And I read it, and it's Proverbs 25:28, and I was like, I probably should read that. It seems to know something about what I was thinking, which is kind of scary. It doesn't use the word soberness or sobriety or sober-mindedness, but it's very applicable. Proverbs 25:28. It says, "He that hath no rule over his own spirit is like a city that is broken down and without walls." And then I put a little note in there about sober-mindedness. So what I'm going to try to portray here about sober-mindedness, what I think it would be meaning is to have a rule over your mind, and then that will come out in your actions and your speech, what you say and what you do. So we might think of the opposite of soberness as being intoxicated with some of these bad ideas or bad thoughts or things that we have in us. But I don't really see it used that way much in the Bible as far as like strong drink or being drunk. So let's look now at Proverbs 6:16, and we can see a list of things that the Lord hates. Proverbs 6:16. "These 6 things doth the Lord hate, yea, 7 are an abomination unto him: a proud look, a lying tongue, and hands that shed innocent blood, and heart that deviseth wicked imaginations, feet that be swift in running to mischief, a false witness that speaketh lies, and he that soweth discord among the brethren." So a few of these points here I was looking at in relation to being sober-minded. So if we just take a brief look at the first one, a proud look, or maybe a proud mind or a proud thought. So a proud person might say, "I can do this all myself, I don't need any help." It's kind of like thinking that you're the end of it all. You're going to do everything. You don't need help. You might not need help. You might say you don't need help from God. And a verse that we can read about thinking too highly of yourself is Romans 12:3. Romans 12:3 says, "For I say, through the grace given unto me, to every man that is among you, not to think of himself more highly than he ought to think, but to think soberly, according as God hath dealt to every man the measure of faith." And this verse brings in the concept of soberness with the concept of thinking too highly of yourself. So I believe that a person that has pride or thinks too highly of himself and thinks he can do things, do a lot, he's smart or whatever, is not going to have a sober mind. And I'd like to compare these concepts here with kind of the opposing thought pattern, which is the good thinking to take on in your mind, which will be sober-mindedness, the opposite of being thinking of yourself too highly. So let's look over at Philippians 2:5. Philippians 2:5 says, I guess we better look at verse 4. "Look not every man on his own things, but every man also on the things of others. Let this mind be in you, which was also in Christ Jesus." So when I read that, it gives me the opposite picture of a person that is thinking of himself too highly. This person doesn't think of himself at all. In fact, he does so much the opposite that he's thinking of other people in a similar fashion as Christ did. And we know what Christ did. He didn't think of himself at all. He thought of what his Father wanted him to do and what it was going to do for all the world in dying to save the world from their sins. So my next point here about what could possibly not be of a sober mind is, my note is prevailing thoughts or culture or music. And I was just thinking about, like, if you turn on the radio, some, I get non-Christian station, like rock or country or something like that, and they're all very much the same. You can, if you listen to, like, I don't recommend you do this, but if you play it for like 2 or 3 songs, you get a few concepts out of there, and they're all very much the same. They talk about drinking, they talk about some kind of improper relationships and lusting after people and stuff like that. And I'm like, wow, this is in every single song. There's not one different. And it doesn't matter whether it's any of the kind of music stations that aren't the Christian stations. And I'm not even going to talk about them because they sound very similar. They just use different words. But anyway, what I'm trying to say here about that is, if you listen to that, you'll hear those concepts of the drinking and the pride in that, and the lusting, and like the people, they like it, and that's who they are, and they're trying to like sell it out to you. So if you listen for sometimes maybe just a little while, you'll start to kind of take on some of that, not like you're going to do it, but like that pride starts to like work on you a bit, and then you start to think in a really bad way. And that is like losing your sobriety without even taking a drink. You just by listening, and so you need something to fight that off. You just want to put it out altogether. Don't listen to any of it, and then put in something else. So we can read the Word or play the audio Bible or whatever, which is what I usually do when I'm driving. So my next point in the list of things that could be not of a sober mind is, I guess, just kind of some different thought patterns that you might run into of people out and about, maybe even Christians. I was talking to one guy that I was around some when I was still going to college, and he said he was a Christian, but he would say a lot of bad language and just terrible stuff, and I was like, how come you're doing this if you're a Christian? But one time, later on, he was talking to me, saying that he was doing a lot better, and he was like learning new stuff or something. And so I asked him, are you sharing this new stuff you know with people you meet and trying to tell people so you can get new people saved? And he said, no. He said, in this country, the U.S., everybody's heard the gospel. They all know what to do. Maybe I don't need to say anything. They've all heard it. If they want to believe it, they can believe it. And I thought, that seems so false. I guess I don't talk to a whole lot of people myself, but especially with like many denominations and church gatherings that teach so many things for salvation other than salvation not by works, I think that there's probably a lot of very cloudy thoughts out there as far as what you should be trusting for salvation. So that is another thing that can cause your mind not to be sober in your thinking, and then it will therefore affect your actions. So the next one is how other people's behaviors influence you, or things like what we might call showing off. So this one I can speak about to the young men, because young men do this, I think.
Amen.
Like if they, okay, let me borrow from Sam. He was telling, I heard in the dining hall about Mustangs and Corvettes and Impalas. So the first two are like the sporty cars, and everybody wants to drive them, and everyone asks to drive them. The second car is a family car, and it's like represents the, I guess, stable guy that is wanting to actually do something important. And so I think of that guy with the Impala maybe as the sober guy. He's not trying to maybe show off. I don't know if you can own one of those cars and not show off. I don't think I'm ever going to try it. I like driving old stuff because it's cheap. But anyway, when I was at the Giddos farm last weekend, Greg was telling about some incident that happened at a, I guess, state fair or something. There was some young guys in a truck doing the animal feeding or something, like really early in the morning. And the two guys up in front, the passenger said to the other guy something, Florida or whatever he said, and this guy's on the back, on the tailgate, like getting ready to throw out the hay or whatever. And he took that advice and he did that, and one of those guys fell off the back and hit his head on the concrete and died. So that was, to me, a really important concept to bring about being sober. That guy in the driver's seat or the passenger there, neither one of those guys had a sober mind. And it doesn't matter whether or not there was somebody on the back to fall off or not. Just to do that because he was dared to, or because whatever, I don't know what was the circumstances. Just to do it because somebody told you to, or you want to show them what your machine can do or whatever, is just the wrong reason to do it altogether.
That's right.
And then the last one in this list of just trying to show what kind of things are not sober is just very simple. About your own heart is just deceitful, and we all have heard, I think, Jeremiah 17:9 a few times this weekend probably. So we don't have to go there, but I can just quickly say that it says the heart is deceitful above all things and desperately wicked. Who can know it? And we can know it because the Bible says it right there. And then I just put a quick note that you cannot follow your heart because of that we know it's wicked. So we need something else to follow. kind of the general outline of this was you need to be sober in what you say, what you do, and also in what you think. So I wanted to look at soberness and then truth together. So in a passage we can go to Acts 26 and see how those things fit together. Acts 26, and we'll look at verse 23. That Christ should suffer, and that he should be the first that should rise from the dead, and should show light unto the people and to the Gentiles. So this whole chapter is about Paul when he went before Agrippa, and Agrippa said he allowed him to speak for himself, and he basically begins preaching to him and telling him his whole testimony about what he used to do before he was converted. And he tells his conversion story, and he gets down to verse 23. He's basically giving him the gospel, what Christ did. And then it says in verse 24, and as he thus spake for himself, Festus said with a loud voice, Paul, thou art beside thyself, much learning doth make thee mad. And Paul replies, but he said, I am not mad, most noble Festus, but speak forth the words of truth and soberness. So here we get a picture of soberness being together with truth, and the truth that he was speaking at in this very instant was about Christ, the resurrected Christ, and the gospel that is very near similar to what we would see in any of Paul's epistles that he later wrote about the people, the body of Christ today. And then, let's see. I think I had verse 26 in here as well. Let's see what that says. For the king knoweth of these things, before whom also I speak freely, for I am persuaded none of these things are hidden from him, for this thing was not done in a corner. So he's just basically proclaiming, I guess, the gospel and making it known a second time, even though it wasn't hidden in it. Okay, so that was just a little bit about soberness in what you're saying. Now I want to speak briefly about soberness in what you do. And now we're going to head back to Titus 2 and look at verse number 11. Titus 2:11. For the grace of God that bringeth salvation hath appeared to all men, teaching us that, denying ungodliness and worldly lusts, we should live soberly, righteously, and godly in this present world, looking for that blessed hope and the glorious appearing of the great God and our Savior Jesus Christ. So this is kind of, I guess, continuing on what we're reading about in Acts, the knowledge of the gospel, but then it's continued out into another aspect of actually what you're doing in your actions. So we should live soberly. First, we should speak soberly the gospel, which is the truth with soberness is the gospel, according to, I guess, what Paul is saying right there is what I would say. And then we come here and we see we should live soberly, righteously, and godly in this present world. And there's a verse somewhere that says that God ordained that they which preach the gospel should live of the gospel. So we could add that thought right here. Now let's look at Philippians 4:9. This is just a little more about Paul, and you could go on and on, I think, with verses to look at some of the characteristics of Paul's life and things that you could emulate to get a better idea of what it would be to live a sober life in your actions. But in this verse, he just says, those things which you have both learned and received and heard and seen in me, do, and the God of peace shall be with you. So that can be another study for another time to see what are those things that have been learned, received, heard, and seen, and just look at a multitude of those things and how we can mold and shape ourselves to do more of those things. And then finally, let's look into a little bit more about soberness of mind. So what you think. You need to know what it means to be sober-minded and how to do it. It starts with the mind and heart and leads to sober actions and words. So we talked already about soberness of speech and soberness of your actions. And so this is really the first part that will lead to the others. If you set your mind straight so that you can set your speech and actions into motion for the right reasons. And if we look at 1 Corinthians 10, we can get a really good idea of how to keep a sober mind. Was it 2 Corinthians? It's 2 Corinthians, I think. 2 Corinthians 10, yeah. For though we walk in the flesh, we do not war after the flesh. For the weapons of our warfare are not carnal, but mighty through God to the pulling down of strongholds, casting down imaginations and every high thing that exalteth itself against the knowledge of God, and bringing into captivity every thought to the obedience of Christ, and having in a readiness to revenge all disobedience when your obedience is fulfilled. So if we think back to those several scenarios that I mentioned, like the showing off, or the pride, or the thinking of bad thoughts, this is what we need to do to those thoughts. We need to cast them down, bring them into captivity, and then take revenge over them with our obedience that we have learned. And secondly, I want to look at Philippians 4:8, and we can see a little more about things that we should be thinking. It actually says here that we are to think on these things. Finally, brethren, whatsoever things are true, whatsoever things are honest, whatsoever things are just, whatsoever things are pure, whatsoever things are lovely, whatsoever things are of good report. If there be any virtue and if there be any praise, think on these things. Those are some very sobering things to think about. And if you think on those kind of good things, and that's all you think about, you'll be able to much more easily put into your walk of life sober speech and sober actions. Your life will not shine for Christ in soberness if you are not sober-minded. So Philippians 2:15 tells us about shining as lights. That ye may be blameless and harmless, the sons of God, without rebuke, in the midst of a crooked and perverse nation, among whom ye shine as lights in the world. So we know that that is desirable for us to be shining as lights in the world, but in order to do that, we need to keep a sober mind and continue to cast down imaginations, fight against the fiery darts of the wicked, and put on something to replace it. And then some final words of exhortation. Let's look at 1 Peter 5. 1 Peter 5, verse 8. It says, be sober, be vigilant, because your adversary the devil, as a roaring lion, walketh about, seeking whom he may devour. And then also 1 Thessalonians 5 and verse 6. Therefore, let us not sleep as do others, but let us watch and be sober. For they that sleep, sleep in the night, and they that be drunken are drunken in the night. But let us who are of the day be sober, putting on the breastplate of faith and love, and for a helmet of salvation, or for a helmet of hope, the hope of salvation. So we're starting to see about some of the armor here. We could look back and Ephesians chapter 6 and get the whole set of armor, but that wasn't part of my notes. I don't know, we could, I guess, look at that. Let's go to Ephesians 6 really quick. Get an idea of what to use to fight against unsober-mindedness. And if we start in verse 12, or maybe verse 11, put on the whole armor of God that you may be able to stand against the wiles of the devil. And that's very similar to the verse that said, be sober, be vigilant. Your adversary, the devil, walking about as a roaring lion, seeking whom he may devour. And then verse 12 says, for we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities and powers, against the rulers of the darkness of this world, against spiritual wickedness in high places. Wherefore, take unto you the whole armor of God, that ye may be able to withstand in the evil day, and having done all to stand. Stand therefore, having your loins girt about with truth, and having on the breastplate of righteousness, and your feet shod with the preparation of the gospel of peace. So that's just explaining some more about what are the tools that we can use to equip ourselves to be sober-minded and to put on the Word of God and go out in the world to shine as lights and let the glory of God shine out. And that is all.
Amen. Thank you. Darren?
Luke, could you read the next two verses after your opening text there? Second.
Titus 2:8, 7.
7 and 8, please.
All right, Titus 2:7. In all things showing thyself a pattern of good works, in doctrine showing uncorruptness, gravity, sincerity, sound speech that cannot be condemned, that he that is of the contrary part may be ashamed, having no evil thing to say of you. He that is of the contrary part, I think of that verse in Philippians that says, which is to them an evident token of perdition, but to you of salvation, and that of God.
Amen.
I'm going to be going a little bit faster today because I'm going to try to get it done